tonight.
I'll sit right in the front row and stare at their corrupt faces. I'd love to do it.
Teasing an appearance, the president blasts the impeachment trial in the Senate.
The president is always loose with the truth, and it seems his lawyers are the same way.
This as Democrats accuse Senate Republicans of engineering an unfair trial.
Plus,
so we think this is an inappropriate use of taxpayer money.
The Supreme Court case that could find religious schools eligible for federal funding. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Opening arguments in the impeachment trial of President Trump. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. Up first, the Democrat House managers. This afternoon, they began laying out their case as to why they think the president should be removed from office.
But earlier, we heard from the president for the first time since the start of the trial. Ben Kennedy is at the White House with that part of our coverage. First, though, we begin tonight with Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill.
Abigail, House managers have 24 hours and 3 days to make their opening arguments. What are they hoping to highlight?
Well, that's right, Jenna. And the key takeaway today is that they believe President Trump violated his oath of office and should be removed from office. Now, they spoke to a lot of points that we've been hearing them say since before Christmas, when the House hearings were going on. And today, another key point that Adam Schiff brought up is that the Democrats believe that they couldn't wait until the 2020 election to let voters decide whether or not to remove Trump from office, because they don't think it will be a fair election. Take a look.
President Trump withheld hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to a strategic partner at war with Russia to secure foreign help with his reelection. In other words, to cheat. In this way, the president used official state powers available only to him and unavailable to any political opponent to advantage himself in a Democratic election. His scheme was undertaken for a simple but corrupt reason: to help him win re-election in 2020. But the effect of his scheme was to undermine our free and fair elections and to put our national security at risk.
Now, the House prosecution has 2 more days to present their case, and then we get to hear from President Trump's defense.
Abby, before opening arguments kicked off, we witnessed what seemed to be dueling press conferences on the Hill. You had Republican senators, House managers, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Can you summarize what you heard today?
That's right, John. There were quite a lot. Senate Republicans gave a press conference just saying that this is Act 2 of the Mueller investigation, that this impeachment process is partisan, that there is no constitutional basis for it. And then before that, we saw Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, give a press conference defending his amendments last night, the many amendments that he offered on the rules, on the procedural rules that took the Senate voting into the wee hours of the morning. Let's play a clip from him.
Republicans can make this trial more fair if they want to. It's not a question of ability. They can, if they want. It's a question of conscience. Senate Republicans have the power in their hands to make it a fair trial. Will they use it when it matters? The next real test will come after Q&A, when we revisit the issue of witnesses and documents.
Now, the first vote on witnesses last night failed, but we will see another one after Phase 1 is complete that could go a different way if Democrats can get those 4 Republicans to vote with them to call forth witnesses.
Yeah, that is the big question. Abigail, also this afternoon, while the trial was going on inside of the Capitol, a group of Republican attorneys general were outside to speak out against impeachment. What were they saying?
That's right. They were arguing that this impeachment has no constitutional basis. They claim that there is no constitutional or legal ground for the case, and that it is being used irresponsibly, and that they were sounding an alarm that this could set a dangerous precedent for future presidents to come. Take a look.
Attorneys general from 21 states came together to write this letter to the United States Senate. We're the chief legal officers of each of our states. And recognizing the importance of the rule of law, recognizing what this impeachment trial has already done to the United States of America. What the House of Representatives has done is tear down and rip apart the threads of our democracy. We cannot allow one party to be so frustrated with the outcome of an election that they will undo our Constitution.
And many of them met with their senators beforehand, urging them to reject the 2 articles of impeachment. Back to you, John and Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson on the Hill, thank you. And let's turn now to Ben at the White House. Today, for the first time since the trial began, we heard from President Trump himself.
He has been overseas the last couple of days, but is heading back to Washington tonight. Before boarding the plane, President Trump called a surprise news conference.
Ben, the president has long maintained his innocence.
Yeah, John, Jenna, you're right. President Trump, no surprise here, lashed out at Democrats in the Senate impeachment trial, calling it a hoax, adding, as you heard earlier in the news open, that he'd like to sit in the front row and stare at their corrupt faces.
I think it's so bad for our country when we have the head of the World Trade Organization here, and he has to listen to this nonsense about a call that was perfect, that nobody talks about. I never see them talking about the transcription. I never see them talking about the call, because there's nothing to say. You read it. Somebody should just sit there and read it, and everybody's going to say, you mean that's an impeachable event?
The latest political morning consult poll reveals 47% are in favor of Trump's removal from office, with 45% opposed. John, Jenna?
Ben, to Democrats' attempts to call witnesses in the impeachment trial, Adam Schiff played old clips of President Trump today, including one in which the president said he'd like for members of his administration to testify, but he's prevented them from cooperating so far. So what's he saying now?
Well, John, President Trump said he wants witnesses to be called and even supports former National Security Advisor John Bolton and Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney testifying in the Senate. But in the end, it'll be up to the Senate to decide, he said.
I'd love to have Mike Pompeo testify, but again, that's a national security problem. But I'd love to have Mike Pompeo, but it's a national security problem. I'd love to have Rick Perry. Rick Perry has asked me, I'd love to testify. Please let me testify, because he knows this is all a hoax. He understands it better than most. And Rick Perry would love to testify. But we're dealing with national security.
Trump was even asked today by reporters if he would testify, and he said, look, don't tempt me. Trump's lawyers say House Democrats rushed to impeach without fighting for witnesses in the courts. The commander-in-chief praised his legal team, saying at this point he thought they are doing a very good job. John, Jenna?
Ben, the impeachment trial is happening just ahead of the president's annual State of the Union speech set for February 4th. Is there any chance that that date could change?
Well, at this point, no. President Trump does plan to deliver the State of the Union as scheduled on February 4th. Jenna, as you were mentioning, there was a bit of speculation the White House might ask to postpone the speech. But Trump said today, even if the impeachment trial is still going, it'll not affect the State of the Union.
All right. Thank you, Ben. And joining us now is Chief Political Analyst David Brody, all the way from our Jerusalem Bureau. David, we'll get to that in just a moment. But right now, we want to ask you about the White House managers making their arguments at the impeachment trial. Who are they trying to win over? Is it specifically the American public or moderate Republicans?
So there's a short-term and a long-term win over. The short-term, Jenna and John, are the actual senators in the well, specifically those moderates that you talk about, especially the moderate Republicans. Once again, back to those 4, we keep talking about it, right? These 4 Republicans that they're going to need. Is it Mitt Romney? Is it Lisa Murkowski? Is it Susan Collins? Is it Cory Gardner? Possibly one of those 4, Susan Collins. I don't know how many have I even said. The point is that that's who they're trying to convince to vote with the Democrats on witnesses, because they got to get to that stage before they can even get to a potential conviction, which no one really thinks is going to happen. And then there's the long-term implication of all of this. In other words, they are speaking to the American public because, look, their neck is on the line here. These House impeachment managers, Adam Schiff, Gerald Nadler, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat Party future as it relates to the presidential election is on the line here. They've got to make a good showing, and I think that's important as well as we head towards November.
David, at one point, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she warned against impeachment, that it would be divisive and partisan. How much of this battle is being felt outside of the Beltway?
So that's a great question, Jenna. A couple things. First of all, let's rewind for a moment and remember Nancy Pelosi said she did not want to go down an impeachment road if it was going to be partisan. She wanted bipartisan buy-in. She never got it, and guess what? ... Here we are, and it's a partisan fight. Exactly what she didn't want. Why didn't she want it? Because she knew that they could suffer electoral consequences in November. And so, look, if you're going to make your bed, you got to sleep in your bed like this. So that's one of those situations there for Pelosi and the Democrats politically. But then beyond that, you have a situation here where there is a partisan divide in this country. So in terms of how this is playing outside of the Beltway, both sides are clearly divided. I don't think we're going to see any movement in the polls. I don't think this is going to change anything. And I got to tell you, on my way here to Jerusalem, I'm in a couple of airports and the impeachment trial is on, and everybody is either on their iPhone or sleeping or buying something at Hudson News or whatever that place is. The point is that they're not really paying attention to it. At least that's a little bit of an anecdotal response.
Yeah, good snacks and pack of gum.
Hudson News. Or Natalie's Candies.
I can wait. Let me just say I can confirm the snacks are good.
All right, David. Back to the point. The Washington Post is reporting that some Senate Democrats are considering a sort of trade. You let us have John Bolton per se as a witness, and we'll let you have Hunter Biden. Do you think that's actually going to happen?
No, I don't think it'll happen. But hey, look, I think that's a great strategy for Democrats, and there's a reason it's a great strategy and why they're even thinking about it. I mean, think about it, John, Jenna. I mean, not that I'm going to ask you to choose, but I got to tell you, you're going to trade. This is like baseball trading cards. You're going to trade a John Bolton for a Hunter Biden. I mean, Democrats should do that in a heartbeat. Why wouldn't they? Hunter Biden adds nothing. Will it be sensational? Will it be interesting? Will Trump be able to tweet about it ad nauseum? Sure, but Hunter Biden doesn't do anything for Republicans. But John Bolton could be the human smoking gun that Democrats have wanted all along. Of course, they wanted to do that during the House, or they decided not to do that during the House impeachment phase, and now here we are. So yeah, if they could get John Bolton for Hunter Biden, I think Democrats should do that in a heartbeat. I think that's a no-brainer. I don't think Mitch McConnell will do it in terms of the procedural rules, and I don't think Republicans will go along with that.
David, we have to ask you, of course, you're joining us from Jerusalem. Tell us what you are doing over there.
Well, I just came for the falafel. I mean, that's it. No, I didn't just come for the falafel. We're going to interview Mike Pence. That's an expensive falafel trip, by the way, let me just say.
Did you get some?
Though I put it on the CBN bill. Yeah. No, it's going to be a one-on-one interview with the Vice President, Mike Pence. We'll sit down with him here in Jerusalem on Thursday. Watch for clips on Faith Nation, obviously, CBNnews.com as well, and the 700 Club on Friday. And we've got a lot to talk to him about. Obviously, he's here for the World Holocaust event commemorating, or at least remembering, I should say, the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And so he's there for that. We'll talk about the Holocaust. We'll talk about anti-Semitism. We'll talk about Iran, religious persecution. Yes, we'll talk about impeachment. We'll talk about his faith. We've got so much to talk about and so little time. We'll have about 20 minutes or so with them. All going to be reported back to you tomorrow, and I will bring home falafel because I'm out of here. After the interview, it's like Pence falafel, and I'm back to D.C.
Can you throw in a side of hummus with that, maybe?
Yeah. Well, non-jet lag CBN.
100%.
Chief Political Analyst David Brody, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for keeping decorum on this Faith Nation political panel. Why a school choice case before the Supreme Court could have implications for religious freedom in America.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea. Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
A case involving religious discrimination was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court today. It centers on a Montana program which would provide tax breaks for scholarship donations that help students attend private schools.
The issue some have with the program, it specifically excludes religious schools. Here's CBN's Paul Strand.
Both sides in this case, Espinoza versus Montana Department of Revenue, say they have the U.S. Constitution on their side. Those who agree with Montana that it can't offer any kind of government benefit that profits religion say that's clearly a matter of separation of church and state.
We don't believe that you as a taxpayer should be compelled to fund anybody else's religious practices.
But those who are on the side of parents with kids in religious schools in Montana say that government is clearly discriminating against religion when it offers a benefit to any private school except religious ones.
Here, the class discriminated against are religious people. Anyone who wants to send their kids to a religious school.
Parent Kendra Espinoza says she could not afford the religious school her daughters attend without some financial assistance, such as those Montana scholarships.
At home, we're a Christian family, and I want those values taught at school. I think that our morals as a society come from the Bible.
As expected, atheist and secular groups showed up here to protest any taxpayer dollars going to any sort of religious institution. Debbie Allen claims some religious schools teach clear discrimination.
So they teach biblical law, for example, and they will discriminate against homosexuals, and so we think this is an inappropriate use of taxpayer money.
But Eric Baxter, whose Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty filed an amicus brief backing the parents, was encouraged by what he heard in the court.
5 of the justices seem to very clearly see the discrimination that's occurring when you take funding away from students because of their religious status.
A recent case, Trinity Lutheran, may be a deciding factor here. In that case, the justices ruled overwhelmingly that Missouri could not offer government grants to private schools to resurface their playgrounds and make them safer if it refused that money to religious schools. Some see remarkable similarities to that case and this one. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
Thanks, Paul. When we come back, we visit a state where teachers are becoming the first line of defense to combat gun violence in America's schools.
Yeah, I got that. I'm dancing around because I know it. I'm moving around because I got it. Yours in the heart. I'm dancing around because I know it. I'm moving around because I got it. Yours in the heart.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
30 seconds or less. That is all the time it takes for a school shooter to devastate. So what can be done to stop them?
One state is taking bold action, allowing teachers to carry guns in the classroom. Caitlin Burke brings us the story.
Mass shootings have scarred communities within the Lone Star State, including Fort Worth, Sutherland Springs, El Paso, Santa Fe, Odessa. The impact is felt in how people practice their faith, run errands, and even protect their classrooms.
I hate having to talk about how we arrange our classrooms, so that we can barricade a door, as opposed to teaching teachers how to arrange their classrooms to create a great learning environment.
Of course, we have security cameras now throughout the building. We have monitors in several locations where a principal or somebody in authority can get to it and pull up cameras and figure out where people are at, where the shooter is at.
Precautions like these are now commonplace across the country, along with metal detectors, trauma kits, and lockdown drills. In Texas, a growing number of school districts are taking it one step further.
In front of Callisburg High School is a warning. The teachers here are armed and will use whatever force necessary to protect their students.
My primary concern is making sure everybody's safe and everybody gets to go home at the end of the day.
Just down the road, Era Independent School District is taking the same approach.
My goal is to try to control the factors that I can control, and then be prepared to deal with the things that we can't.
In June, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a law allowing school districts to arm teachers or school personnel as they see fit. But rural districts like Callisburg and Era began arming their teachers years ago.
We're a small country town in North Texas. We're not incorporated, so we don't have a local law enforcement that's unique to our community. Our county sheriff's department serves us greatly, but realistically, we're 15 to 20 minutes away, oftentimes, from response. And most of the statistics will say that school shootings are long over before that time. And so we really felt like we needed something to mitigate the damage in that interim time while we're waiting a response.
Because there is that possible 10, 15-minute delay, we thought the best avenue to protect our kids was to develop a local Guardian team.
The Guardian program is one of 2 training options given to Texas school districts that choose to arm staff. Under this program, schools establish the policies or rules, and it's designed to protect students while waiting for law enforcement to arrive.
They go through training every summer. They do both the shooting range for a full day, and then they spend a full day inside of a campus building going through various scenarios.
The other option, called the School Marshal Program, is overseen by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. It trains teachers to take out an active shooter as quickly as possible, much the same as an armed church member was recently able to take out an active shooter in 6 seconds at West Freeway Church of Christ outside of Fort Worth, Texas.
If the school marshal or the armed person on campus doesn't actually end up stopping it themselves, they at least stop the progress, and it changes the dynamics of the whole situation.
Candidates must undergo 80 hours of training conducted by a law enforcement academy, which includes going through a computer-simulated course as well as a live drill.
Coming into it, they need to understand that there is a step here I may need to take that is scary, and maybe something that I'm going to have to push through, a barrier I'm going to have to push through. And just like a police officer has to do that same thing. And we try to put them in training situations and scenarios that let them address that threshold.
Vickers stresses prevention, not armed teachers, is the solution for ending school shootings.
In a perfect world, we would stop it before it ever happens. I've seen those programs start as early as in elementary school, where they start trying to identify kids that are displaying those types of characteristics and tendencies, and by addressing them there, you can keep it from ever getting to that point. I think that's the ultimate answer, is addressing it before it gets started, by helping these kids that end up being our shooters. But there's no way, I don't think you're ever going to completely, you can say, we're going to shut it down and you'll never have a shooter. So if you're going to have a shooter, then you need to have something to address it. That's where the school marshal program comes in.
Lockdown drills, security zones, and armed teachers. It's heartbreaking, but for now, it's reality. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Dallas, Texas.
A pro-life push on the anniversary of that court case that legalized abortion in America. That's next. You're watching Faith Nation.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come and...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Well, today marks 47 years since the Supreme Court ruled abortion a constitutional right in a landmark Roe v. Wade court case.
And in a tradition dating back to Ronald Reagan, the day has also been designated as National Sanctity of Human Life Day. President Trump marked the day with an official proclamation, reading in part, quote, "As a nation, we must remain steadfastly dedicated to the profound truth that all life is a gift from God, who endows every person with immeasurable worth and potential."
And all of this, of course, comes right before the big March for Life on Friday.
That's right. Thousands expected here in Washington to march throughout the city for the unborn.
Well, that is going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation.
Have a great evening.